do my best just to keep running, to keep the train of thought, but this is part of a second video. But what I was saying what I was getting around to saying is that, so like, I was giving an example of how I was talking about like about terms and how some of what is appreciated as mental health, not maybe not all, but a lot of what's mental health in the form of like limiting, condemning diagnoses that are leveled on people, is that according to Dr. Umar Johnson, these are professional opinions that are being applied to a person, and then they're almost like a code. So like if you think about like how, okay, so say you're in a place like I am right now. I'm in an apartment in like a pretty what would be considered a decent, almost well-to-do part of the area where I'm at, and then the authorities, they get a phone call to arrive somewhere, and they don't know what's going on there yet. They can only imagine. They probably have all kinds of training. They've seen all kinds of hellfire things that can take place in life, in society, in civil society. So but they have only, they can only imagine what level of ratcheted up situation or mundane, or they might appreciate boring situation would be transpiring somewhere to receive a call. But then they're on their way, and the way that the situation is described over the radio, or then even on the scene to officers. You know, sometimes you see these officers. They're like, you're like at a eating place, and you see some officers come in there, and you know they're almost like dressed better than like you would imagine. Like, I don't mean to be rude with this, but you would imagine like some Nazis, right? Because like they say that one of the strengths about the Nazi regime is that they understood the power of communication, but also appearance, communication in appearance, and that can actually be, appearance is actually a tactical advantage in a very nuanced but also profound sense, in some form of military combat, but also civil society, or you can maybe say like law enforcement appearance, and what would lead into some of the situations that would be attended by military, law enforcement, and different civil things. Appearance is very profound in that, and so the Nazis are recognized as one group of people that played that to a strong suit and capitalized on that, maybe in a lethal way, in a heinous way, but they were effective in employing that as power. And some of the atrocity of, maybe you could say, different atrocities, including the Nazi period, including the period, some of the actual Nazis in World War II are actually close, 1 and 2 generations removed from their ancestors that were actually leveling a similar atrocity over the people that I come from in Africa, the Herero people I come from, but then also the Nama people were affected by an order of genocide in a war between 1904 and 1908 in German Southwest Africa, a colony of Germany at that time, a recent nation, Germany, having been Prussia before that, is my understanding. But the actual ancestors that would become the Nazis, some of them might actually be living officers from the people that afflicted my people, but they would also be first and second generation descendants of these people that would go on to perpetrate actual genocide yet again against the people in Europe, marginalized people in Europe, but had been also marginalized people in German Southwest Africa. And I actually attended a beautiful conference of solidarity between victims of the Holocaust, and I met Holocaust survivors with stories that you cannot make up. Some of our greatest storytellers have done films about the Holocaust, but you could not make up, even at that level of storytelling, you could not make up some of the stories and the synchronicities and that they told me about some of these survivors. This is about maybe about 10 years ago now, but they were having solidarity with the people that I come from, because some of these people, well-to-do, wealthy and learned people of both my people that I come from and the people in Europe that suffered that atrocity. Both actually, those people can have excellent people. There's a high representation within academia of a lot of Africans in general, but also where I come from, such as my father, case in point, and then also some of the people victimized in Europe. You have that same the wealth and the learnedness, and the self culture, or the culture and the taste. But these people actually converged in New York City around 2016, and they were having solidarity about that shared history. But all I meant to say is that in both conflicts and in many conflicts, appearance is very potent, and it can be used. Something that's potent, it's almost a little bit amoral in that it can assume be used as a benefit, as a detriment, as a ointment, as a balm, as a solvent, healing agent, and as an actual lethal like as poison or as a blunt weapon can be appearance. But but so uh, but so appearance is very powerful. But then you have a person. So but also you have these people like law enforcement officers at an eating place, and their appearance is as well put together and would convey discipline and culture and care and etiquette and class and power, frankly speaking, as would some Nazis, I would imagine. And they also have these firearms that they're brandishing, and actually brandishing, according to the YouTuber The Game Spitter, brandishing a firearm can actually be a means of deterring conflict and also sustaining the footing leading into a conflict and overcoming a conflict. Actually, brandishing a weapon in the first place could actually be a means and a tactic, such as we see with law enforcement officers, is that they're not shy to brandish weapons. Sometimes I've seen law enforcement officers at different times with heavy, like paramilitary weapon, even in civil society, but at least just simply firearms, brandishing them in plain sight as an actual tactic of contrary to popular thought, most people would think that you're stronger to conceal a weapon, and there is such a thing called Moffat, which would be like a law enforcement officer in plain or ordinary civil clothing. Also, a business owner, I think, in civil clothing would be Moffat. When I was doing transportation school age pupils in different regions of the Twin Cities, sometimes I would actually see undercover officers in Moffat that would present themselves when a situation transpired. And I've also been approached by business owners in Moffat when I was doing redeeming and upright and shedding good vibes in a public establishment with an instrument, and I was approached by an actual business owner in Moffat once. But so that's still a tactic in itself, because one tactic is not better or worse than another. It's just effective or not effective in the situation. So one tactic is to conceal a weapon, to conceal an identity. Another tactic is to blast a weapon, not fire, but that is to brandish a weapon, to brandish an identity. So when you see officers in public, they're somewhat brandishing themselves as officers with their appearance and their weapon, and that's part of, I would imagine that's part of law enforcement. Riding around in marked vehicles as law enforcement is part of law enforcement, but that's not all of law enforcement. And there might likely be obviously non decaled officers. But what I meant to say is, what gets these people that are so well-to-do, so respectful, so disciplined, so proper, so clean, yet also so potent and dynamic, potent potent and vital with these weapons? What gets them to actually using those weapons on someone and actually putting hell on someone? Because as someone can look that nicely put together, they can also be the application of a person's death and actual hellfire to a person, as we've seen in some situations. What gets it from walking in the eating establishment like that to becoming hellfire to someone? It's the code. So it's like, okay, we got this and that adult male walking on foot in this direction, and okay, I think he's armed. Okay, and he's got a gun. So you see how that can sound crazy like that, right? So that's actually a code that was applied to someone, and so now this entire apparatus, this actual machine, this actual lethal machine that's actually in plain sight and not plain sight in our civil society, that is law enforcement about us, can actually transform into an actual monster and become hell to a person, whether that was warranted or not, by the application of a code. If you watch some certain police stops, when it becomes hellified, you'll see that they're putting codes on a person, like, he's dangerous, I think he's got a gun, I think, oh what, he's got, and then they get hurt like that because they put the code on them. But then also, that doesn't have to be that would be like in law and crime. But then, like in civil society, you get some of these diagnoses, like a mental health diagnosis, and that's what the apparatus of this civil society can become to a person once they have that code applied to them. Okay, so this person has has this condition, that condition. But according to Dr. Umar Johnson, is that these are actual professional opinions, and I'm saying, what the hell is a professional? You're going to these fancy schools and you're frolicking and you're reveling and you're getting drunk and you're basically parlaying no different than pirates, and probably also drinking the same thing as pirates, rum and whatnot. getting blown away, and now you want to get around to being a professional and putting codes on people is